on hate crime legislation and what it means for people of faith. While the debate over hate crimes laws has been in the news a great deal over the last few months, other countries are much further down the road than ours. And we're going to hear from a Canadian expert about what these laws have done to free speech for people of faith in his country and what we can expect in our own. But we begin today closer to home with a case that shows how the very act of speaking out with a Christian message is quickly becoming cause for arrest and prosecution in the United States. This is a case where 75-year-old grandmothers face the very real possibility of spending the rest of their lives in prison. And the story of a young man with a message of hope for those in the grip of homosexuality who was villainized by the media. They are part of a group better known as the Philadelphia 11.
Every year in Philadelphia, they have a celebration of homosexuality. It's called Outfest. It's a taxpayer-funded event where thousands of people come into the streets of Philadelphia to celebrate their homosexuality. So as Christians, we believe that there needs to be a response to a public celebration of sin, such as Outfest. So our ministry went to Outfest. There were 11 of us in total, and ultimately we had been arrested for singing Blessed Be the Name of the Lord at this event because we were directed out of the event, and we believe that we had the right to be in the public square just as everyone else. What they do is they set up a stage here on the corner of 13th and Locust where this traffic is coming out, and basically on this stage there's a lot of open lewdness that takes place, a lot of very disturbing things that do take place in front of children, and we were actually entering to the event through this sidewalk here. Right here at this intersection of 13th and Locust, we were blocked by a group of homosexuals who actually linked arms to prevent us from coming into the event. They knew in advance because the Philadelphia Gay News had been covering our visits in previous years, and the police took their time in actually allowing us to make it through.
It's almost this is a public sidewalk, public street. You go where you want.
All right, thank you, officer. Many people started to gather around us, and they began to blow these ear-piercing whistles. And their intention was obviously to annoy and to harass us, to alarm us, which also is a violation of Pennsylvania law. When I brought that to the attention of the captain who was on duty, who was actually handling the event, he handles almost every homosexual event that takes place in the city. He said he didn't say he was going to do anything about that issue.
At the same time, this here is obstruction. When they have the signs and trying to block us, and their intent, as they said in the Philadelphia Gay News, is to have us block our message blocked.
If you feel that way, I think you can seek relief through injunctive relief or through the courts.
As I was speaking with him and encouraging him to do something about these whistles that were being blown at us, and they had big pieces of styrofoam that were cut out in the form of angels. And they began to block us with these styrofoam boards so no one can see us. They basically stood around us and made sure that no one would be able to see or hear us. And obviously that was very troublesome, but the police decided not to do anything about it.
So when they have their pink signs around us, did you give them the same message?
They're getting ready to get rid of their signs.
But you didn't tell them that they had to get their signs out of here.
11 members of the group Repent America were arrested, including 2 grandmothers. The group became known nationwide as the Philly 11, and they would soon learn that sharing the gospel in public in Philadelphia was considered a hate crime. Coming up, meet the grandmothers who face spending the rest of their lives in jail as part of the Philly 11. When 11 members of the group Repent America were arrested for attempting to share the gospel at a gay pride event, they faced the very real threat of decades behind bars.
Kept taking our pictures and fingerprints, and it was, the longer we were being held, I realized that we weren't getting out right away.
We were charged with 3 felonies and 5 misdemeanors, which could have put us away for 47 years in jail and $90,000 in fines each.
The felony charges included riot and ethnic intimidation.
It was totally surreal. I mean, I just couldn't believe. It just seemed like unreal, the whole thing. But then to be charged with ethnic discrimination, I mean, this is absolutely absurd.
Pennsylvania has a law called the Ethnic Intimidation Act, and this is more commonly known as a hate crimes law. We hear in the news a lot today about federal hate crimes laws and other states passing hate crimes law. In Pennsylvania, the hate crimes law is called an Ethnic Intimidation Act. Up until about 2 or 3 years ago, the Ethnic Intimidation Act covered things like ethnicities, minorities, blacks, that type of thing. It was amended in the dark of night, literally, to include sexual orientation.
Well, the hate crime legislation is going to do away with our freedom of speech. And the churches don't realize it, but it's not going to just be for us who go out in the street and take a stand against it, but it's going to affect the churches.
This is, we believe, probably the first time, if not the only time, anybody has been charged with a hate crime where the instrument of the hate crime is, at least incidentally, a Bible. The whole movement towards creating statewide hate crimes laws and national hate crimes laws is a really scary movement in this country. And anybody who has any belief in the First Amendment or even the things that made this country great ought to be really scared about this.
You know, it strengthens your faith in the Lord and what He can do for you. And we are going to face persecution. It's promised.
God has called us to love them, and we are there with a message of love, and that is that there is hope and freedom through Jesus Christ, that they can be set free from their sins. And that was what we were there to do. Nothing more, nothing less.
Michael Markavage and Repent America continue to speak out at events like Outfest. In the fall of 2007, he was cited for speaking to people waiting in line to see the Liberty Bell in downtown Philadelphia. The federal park ranger who instructed him to leave the area told him he would have to move to what he called a free speech zone to continue his street preaching. It seems that right in the cradle of democracy, a public sidewalk is not an area where one can speak freely. The idea that only specified areas can be utilized for free speech is a violation of the First Amendment. The Founding Fathers intended for this country to be a free speech zone in its entirety, not just in places deemed acceptable by the whims of local officials. A court date for Michael Markavage is pending. The case of the Philadelphia 11 is a chilling precursor to what we will face if hate crimes legislation is allowed to become the law of the land. A crime is a crime. How many times do you hear of someone being assaulted or raped or murdered because of some strong feelings of love and contentment? All violent crimes are crimes of hate. These new laws are unnecessary because we already have laws in place against the crimes themselves. But we're heading down a road where our thoughts, motivations, and deeply held convictions may be turned against us to protect a small group of activists. Did you know that under these laws, the punishment would be greater for the assault of a 22-year-old homosexual man than for the same assault on an 85-year-old woman? Hate crimes laws are a slippery slope, one that the nation of Canada is already struggling with. Tristan Emanuel is the author of Christophobia, the real reason behind hate crime legislation. And I had a chance to sit down with him to get a glimpse at what a United States under hate crimes laws might look like.